Ready? Okay. Dennis. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, March 7th at 7 p.m. in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present, except for trustee Pieper, who was planning to join us via WebEx. Do we know if she's on via WebEx?
Don't see her on.
Okay, well, perhaps she will join us in session. But at this time, she is out of town, so she can be on the list as being excused. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. States of America, republic for which it stands, nation, justice for all. Thank you. Next item is President's Report. Too much to report tonight, just kind of a shout out to the Germantown girls basketball team and the great job that they're doing going towards the state finals. They had a very tough game. Seemed like they actually came back from being down considerably in the second half and actually turned it around and were able to make it a win for them. So congratulations to them, and we hopefully wish them good luck as they continue on towards the state championship. That's all I have for President's Report, so we can go to announcement, events of public interest, committee and department reports. We'll start with committee reports and committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, April 6th.
Okay, we'll go then to Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on Monday, March 21st at 6 p.m. in this boardroom.
Thank you. And we'll go to Trustee Myers.
Mr. President, the next public safety meeting will be April 4th at 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else that they'd like to bring forward for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Jan Miller.
I'd like to announce that we will have a Independence Day, 4th of July meeting this week, Wednesday, the 9th, in this room at 6 p.m. And my second announcement is that this year we will have MyFest or Mayfest Festival. It's the weekend of May 20th through the 22nd, and they will hold it in the Marketplace parking lot, and that would be near Life Church and Starbucks.
The original site.
The original site under a big tent.
Good, excellent. It's easily recognizable as people drive through. I always kind of liked it there because it draws its own crowd.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? All right, seeing there is nothing else, we can then go to citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to a public hearing. There are no public hearings on tonight's agenda. So if there is anyone within our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to participate in citizen input or public appearance, all I would ask is you come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record, or make it known to the person monitoring WebEx that you would like to speak. Is there anyone wishing to come forward for citizen input or public appearance? All right, seeing there's no one in our audience or via WebEx. All right, then we can go to the next item, which is consent agenda. Board?
Motion to approve consent A through H.
Second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve consent agenda items A through H. Is there any discussion on that motion to approve? No discussion. We'll do roll call vote, please.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Baum. Trustee Kaminsky.
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Neidreiter.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next item then under the agenda is under unfinished business. We'll start with unfinished business item A, which is the Village Board 2022 goals. And to give us more information and update us on where we are with that, I'll turn the meeting over to the village administrator.
Thank you. As you may recall, at the February 7th meeting of the village board, you had a discussion on strategic goals and objectives for the village as a whole. The purpose for setting those goals and objectives would be to provide guidance and direction not only for the village board, but for me as the administrator and other department heads and village employees as well. During that meeting, the board reached a consensus around four general goals. One, improving retention rates for village employees. Two, increasing the level of trust residents have in the village board and village employees. Three, improving communication between the village and residents. And four, completing the 2050 comprehensive land use plan by August 1st with at least 2 public hearings. And then at the end of that meeting, the board directed me to come back with some, so-called SMART goals, quantifiable, time-specific goals that could be used for to set objectives for employee 2022 performance standards. I did have a couple of conversations with staff, with trustees to try to get some additional feedback and put together based on that the goals that are attached in the memo here, the objectives that are attached to the memos. The first one would be to maintain or improve retention rate for all village employees. That includes full-time and part-time in 2022 from 90.7% in 2021 to a satisfactory achievement of that objective would be 90%, exceeds expectation would be 92%, and outstanding would be 95%. The second objective would be to complete design, testing, and implementation of a new utility billing system before and for satisfactory March 31st of 2023. Exceeding expectations would be December 31st of 2022, and outstanding would be December 31st of 2022 and being under budget. I guess that one in particular, you may say, where does that fit in? I would say that if you ask staff, probably one of the most difficult complaints we get from residents is about the utility bills. Our current system, as you all know, is failing. It requires that over half of the bills that we're sending out are estimated at this point, and therefore, it's an estimate. It's generally wrong. So trying to get that information, trying to get that updated where we're providing accurate information, I think helps to build trust with residents. The third objective is to maintain or improve 2022 employee engagement scores from village employees from 3.7 for 2021 to a satisfactory would be keep maintaining that 3.7. Exceeding expectations would be going up to 3.9, and outstanding would be going up to 4.1. The fourth objective would be by the end of 2022, increasing the number of subscribers using C-Click-Fix, our customer request tracking system, and a satisfactory score would be 500, exceeding expectations would be 1,000, and outstanding would be 1,500 new subscribers. And then fifth refers back to the land use plan, complete the 2050 comprehensive land use plan, and a satisfactory score would be by July 31st with 2 public hearings or listening sessions. Exceeding expectations would be by July 31st with 3 public hearings or listening sessions, and outstanding would be by June 30th with 4 public hearings or listening sessions. So these are the village board objectives. As requested, I put my ideas and thoughts out there, but these belong to the village board, and happy to answer any questions and make any adjustments that the board directs.
Board questions, comments? Trustee Nyrider.
Yes, sorry. I guess in looking these over, I expected more and a little more detail with these. The first one I looked at, as far as the retention of employees, Aaron, before you started, I forget who was in your position. I remember getting a memo at a general government meeting, I think it was,
Yes.
really outlining a bunch of things that we needed to look at from a retention standpoint for employees. And I thought that some of them were good, some of them were probably a little bit way out, but it provided some guideline for us to get to. And I think some of those, if we can go back, and I tried today to look for that memo, I couldn't find it. I think it'd be worthwhile looking at that to see what was in there and maybe incorporate some of those into this. The other thing is when you're talking about retention of employees, I still think there's a difference, retention numbers as far as part-time and full-time. And I think you're shooting yourself in the foot by putting them both together because let's face it, part-time probably are going to leave faster, where full-time, so I think do we distinguish a percentage in that way between the two areas? I'm just throwing that out. The utility billing system, yeah, that I agree. That's an important one. You guys know better than we do the dates and whatever because of working with the software companies. The other one was the number of subscribers for the ClickFix. Do we know how many are using it at the current time?
It is a new product that's out there. We haven't placed a lot of emphasis on enrolling people in when they're making requests. We've been getting requests in. I think we're over 100 at this point. It just became live at the beginning of the year. I think what this would do is say that the board's priority is to get people subscribed so that it's two-way communication. And I think, so we'd be going from really 10 or less, 20 or less that we have right now, to getting it off the ground and getting a large number of subscribers.
Okay. And then the land use plan, yeah, that I know we've discussed here, and those dates and everything are good for me. The only thing I think that a component that maybe should be in there is, and we've talked about it here, we've had some emails going back and forth, is the citizen participation with it. And not saying that you're going to have 30 people here or 50 people, but what other components could we do to try and increase that? And I know in talking to Director Retzloff the other day, he had some specific things that they're doing. I think those maybe should be listed as part of those that we get as well. And the only other thing I think is when we're talking about improving communication between village and residents, which is goal number 3, do we need to add additional things for that? Is there anything else that we can put in there to help increase communication? We talked about newsletter, we talked about other things. Can we maybe list several other be a little more specific with that is my only question. Thank you.
Gil? Trustee Jan Miller?
I had a couple of suggestions on these goals, and I agree with Trustee Nyrider. On the first one, maintaining the retention, I think that the satisfactory should be the same rate as the 2021. I mean, the baseline, which is 90.7%. That's under A. And the other percentages look okay to me. I agree with them that full-time and part-time is dramatically different, especially the example I have is the library. They have, they have quite a few part-time people. You're on number 2, the complete design, testing, and implementation of the utilities billing system is so important right now, but connecting it to the trust of the residents, yes, it's just it seems to me like it's a system that is broken down that we're trying to fix that should have been there. So, not, I'm not sure how it connects to trust. That's just my feeling. And because it is outsourced, and we just have to keep the people working on it with our staff, correct?
And I want to say about 50% of the hours involved are village staff.
Okay.
It's somewhere in that range, but yeah, it is, there is a significant staff effort, but there is also an element that's outsourced.
And then on number 3, what is the employee engagement score? How do you measure it?
We have a survey that we do annually with employees. There's 12 questions. We've been doing this for several years now. There's 12 questions that we pulled from Gallup organization that they recommend that are kind of a standard set that are used to measure employee engagement, and it allows you to also do not only do comparisons over time, but look at other organizations in your trade or your industry that also use those same questions.
So it's only once a year?
Correct.
Is that what's recommended? It seems like kind of a long time to get input. Like, I would think it would be something like quarterly.
You know, it would be possible to do it quarterly. I think probably the reason that most organizations don't do those kinds of surveys that frequently is that if you can get survey fatigue if you send out, things too frequently to employees and ask them to respond. It tends to lower the participation rates, and you might be capturing, if you do it quarterly and it's after a couple of weeks where there's a lot of bad snowstorms, that might impact your results more than other things that have a longer term impact. So something we could certainly look into, and I haven't researched that about whether quarterly it might be done. The other places that I've been that have done similar types of surveys have just been an annual type thing, but we can take a look at that.
So the last time you did it was 2021.
At the end of 2021,
So like December or November?
January of this year to measure the end of last year.
Oh, okay. And then by the end of 2022, so I'm concerned about getting the data for the click fix or any of these things. If we have to report it and then get goals for next year or do measurements, would it be better to collect it by the end of November? It's just an ask.
Yes, it's the timing is something that is a bit of a challenge this year. It's we're only 23 days, 24 days away from the end of the first quarter, and we're looking at setting goals and objectives. So, to be real candid, I haven't thought through how this is all going to work. We're going to have to roll some things out to the department heads. But yeah, it would be nice if we were kind of wrapping up the year-end performance before Thanksgiving, so that we're able to get things done before the holidays start and people start taking vacations and all of that.
Right.
That's the timeline we're working towards.
And people get holiday fatigue.
Yeah.
And the 2050 plan is something that we're trying to get more people to participate. When they brought this up at the Plan Commission meeting, my suggestion was if you want a lot of people and you want to get comments, perhaps we can set up a booth at the 4th of July. And I would recommend that if you want to measure the satisfactory, exceeds expectations, and outstanding, that use the same date, the 31st of July. That's what I would do. Because then you're having one or 2 public hearings, 3 or 4. So you have the same date. That's what I would recommend.
Okay. Further discussion or comments? Trustee Kaminsky.
A couple of comments on two of the 5 bullet points. I think I really like number 2. I like things that are just driven by analytics. We're going to know what we're doing on that. I think some of the employee stuff is rather soft, malleable, and difficult to judge. Number 3, for instance, maintain or improve the 2022 employee engagement scores. Like, we never see that. Village constituents never see that. To me, that is a sub-bullet of number 1. If your employees are engaged and they're working well together as a team and whatever else is in the survey, then that would flow up to number 1, that you're going to be able to maintain and improve your retention rate. These employees aren't going to go anywhere because they're happy or happier. So 3, as a standalone, I personally don't care for it all. I think it's way too soft. Number 4, I like number 4, but again, I'd like to see it more constituent driven. I know we discussed this because it's a launch year. I still think, even in a launch year, we can judge staff on how responsive they are to what comes in on See, Click, Fix, because those are problems or things that people have an issue with the village. And when that comes into the website, how quickly do we respond to that? And not just how quickly we send out an email or call the person back, but how quickly we actually try to rectify legitimate issues, for example. So number 4, I'd like to see that maybe just tweaked to the point where, once again, it's more constituent driven. Are we serving our constituents well? Are we being responsive in real time and quickly? And let's see, and number 5, again, that's a nice hard one. I have no problem with that at all. But those are my comments.
Other comments? Trustee Hudson.
So what's the intent here, I guess, is my question.
What I would request is that the village board adopt a set of these or modify these, but come to an agreement on what the objectives are so that we can use those moving forward.
And if we do that, are these goals then going to become your goals?
These goals would become my goals, yes.
And then will these goals become the department head's goals also?
Variations of these for some are more applicable to some department heads than others, but yes, that's the intent, that these would roll down then to the department heads as well.
So the intention is to get us all pulling on the same rope, all going in the same direction.
Yes.
So what if we do less than satisfactory? So the lowest score on all of these is satisfactory, which to me is an average merit increase, right? That's what satisfactory says. What if we come in at a turnover rate of 76%? By this, that's satisfactory.
Well, if it's below satisfactory, what we've done in the past is there's 2 categories. One is needs improvement, which would mean that then the employee would go on a performance improvement plan and have some specific methods to try to get their performance up to the satisfactory level. Or if that wasn't feasible and if it was unsatisfactory, and this hasn't been the case in the 2 years that we've done the merit pay system, we'd look at moving on from the employee or finding a better fit for them or finding some other situation.
And so I'm familiar with measuring turnover rates and also measuring engagements. So can you talk a little bit about the specific questions that are on the engagement survey and how they differ from lowering a turnover rate?
Well, the engagement questions are, again, they're developed by Gallup, so there's a series of 12 of them. And I did not bring the copy of them along with me, but as much as anything, from what I've read about the academics or the theory behind them, is that it not only helps with turnover, but also with customer relations, that generally employees, organizations that have high level of employee engagement do well with customers, that they're happy employees, they interact well with customers coming in and going through transactions. I think those, I think the combination of having the two measures together is good, because what isn't captured as much under the employee engagement are things like compensation, or I think the term from
I assume there is a compensation question on the survey.
there is one, but it's not the focus of it. But I think that there are a lot of other types of questions. So the employee engagement survey is much broader than just looking at compensation. So I think the two are related. I think you could have the employee engagement as a sub-measure. I think it can help to get at the reasons why, if you have turnover rates that are higher than you're looking, why people are leaving. Is it compensation? Is it issues with coworkers? Is it issues with supervisors? What are the reasons that people are leaving?
And then my last question is so this is a roadmap. How often are we going to hear about progress reports on the village board level?
Quarterly.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, motions? Trustee Myers?
Are we trying to, Mr. President, are we trying to finish something off in this subject matter after having comments from previous trustees this evening?
Yes, if you need to, if you'd like to make any changes to it as it's presented, now would be the time. If it were me looking at this and breaking it out, I would first look at the 4 goals and make sure that we are all on board and in unison with what the 4 goals list. And then what the next item would be is how to get there and how it's measured by either achieving or getting towards the 4 goals as listed. And that would be that next section that kind of breaks it down into the 5 different areas that tend to lean towards any of those 4 goals. So the 4 goals that are above is what we recommended last meeting. And then we tasked Steve with telling us how and what he was going to do in order to give us something that was measurable to show that we were either achieving or not achieving those goals. And then also making sure that it is brought through the village staff from Steve to his department managers down to supervisors and to the employees. So that everybody's on the same page and working in the same direction, which I think this achieves. And I think this is probably the most detailed we've seen, or I've seen, since I've been on this board. And I think it breaks it down well. Now you can be tweaked. 1 through 5 can be tweaked and of course added to. But I think the 4 goals in themselves are good, solid goals.
And I would agree with your comments in regard to it, but it's just that with the input that I've heard from being the detail aspect in regard to these 5 areas, that I'd like to see some verbiage put into it so we don't lose that particular aspect. Is that something that we can do?
Now would be the time. You make a motion to approve it as presented and go either with amendments to change or make your change within the motion of what you'd like to see and what other details you'd like to be put in 1 through 5. Or you could break it into 2. You could make a motion just to approve the goals, and then you could make a motion to approve how we're going to get there. All up to you guys on how you want to handle it. But I think that this moves us in a direction of being able to measure it and show some points of why we think we hit satisfactory, exceeds expectations, or outstanding. And I would agree with Steve that anything less than what's listed there, so if we would not have the complete design, testing, and implementation of new utility billing systems before March 31st, 2023, that would be, needs improvement. That's how that would fall. Anything less than what's satisfactory to me would need improvement.
So,
I don't think-
so
Unless you
basically
want to see it listed, that's how I would understand it to be.
So basically speaking, from people who spoke this evening, the three trustees, if they wanted to add those things, we'd add them to the motion. Is that correct?
They can. You can take the, like I said, you can take the motion as it's presented, like with these points, and make your changes through amendments, or you can start with a motion that encompasses some of those changes. However you want to get that ball rolling.
I mean, I'll just make a motion to accept what was presented to us and let people amend it accordingly as such. And then my other thing, Steve, if we could have a copy of those 12 questions, that would be helpful, please. Thank you.
So your motion then is to approve the goals and the, how we're going to define that, the,
5 goals.
become target or
Objectives.
the objectives of how we're going to achieve them. That's your motion as listed on our agenda?
Let's just take one at a time, please.
You're going to go goal,
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be.
We're gonna
hard to
be here a
encompass.
while, then.
Let's take each particular one. Sorry.
you know, you
Let me just
You
buzz
could
my
start
ears.
with the goals and then get into the minutia of the details. You could do it as a whole and then change it by amendment at that time. But I don't want to, unless the board wants to, go through five motions.
Okay,
Then
we take them all. I saw some heads.
as presented, that's your
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
As presented with the 4 goals and the 5, what did you call them? Objectives, thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. Trustee Hudson.
Yeah, I'd like to put something in each of the 5 objectives about unsatisfactory performance, please.
Of what that is?
Yes.
And how it's
I'd like
defined?
it defined.
So for example, under number 1, anything less than 90% would be needs improvement. Is that?
89.9% or less, correct, yes.
Okay, so anything that's below the satisfactory mark would be considered needs improvement.
Yes,
Okay, and you'd like to see that spelled out,
yes, please.
okay? And that is your motion to amend?
That is my motion to amend.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded, discussion. Trustee Chan Miller.
Can we change the satisfactory to 90.7, which is what the goal is right now? I mean, what the rate is right now. So number 1A should be satisfactory 90.7%.
If that is okay with the motion maker, if he wants to include that in his motion, or you can do it in a separate motion to amend the amendment.
That's okay with the motion maker.
Okay, and that's okay with the second? Bill?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
then yes.
Okay. And then can we also amend the motion to change 5C to July 31st?
Let,
Or should we do just one at a time?
let's go one at a time.
All right, thank you. That would be. all
So
I
right
need.
now, the motion to amend is to give a definition of what is considered needs improvement as listed, so which would be less than what is considered satisfactory in each of the 5 areas. Further discussion on that motion to amend. Trustee Baum?
And to change the 90 to 90.7.
7.
Yes.
Correct. That was part of the motion, yes.
Right.
Further discussion? No further discussion on the motion to amend. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion? Jan?
Oh. Now I would like to change item number 5 under objectives. 5C, outstanding would be by July 31st instead of June 30th.
With 4 public hearings.
With 4 public hearings listed.
Because that encompasses your want of having a booth at the 4th of July.
And it does.
Okay.
Plus
Motion
the-
made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion. Trustee Hudson.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about objective number 2, please, and satisfactory. So the issue, the problem, the question I have is these are 2022 goals. March 31st of 2023 is not in this year. So if there's that issue, and then the associated issue is there's nowhere to go for a needs improvement on that. Right? So we need to, the goals should pertain to 2022. And we can't count work in 2021, nor can we count work in 2023. So we need to revise that a little bit, is my personal belief.
Yeah, I struggled with that because I see your point, but I understand what you're saying. But and the target date to complete the implementation, to complete the design, the testing and the implementation is December 31st.
Then maybe the goal should be the design and testing.
Okay. I think that would work.
For satisfactory?
Yeah.
That is your motion?
December 31st. So the implementation date right now stands at, please?
December 31st.
So that to me is satisfactory. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if the current target is December 31st, I don't see how we can get and exceeds expectations out of something that's expected, right? That's satisfactory.
Well, and one of the challenges with this type of project is the implementation date really never is earlier. And there's really no possibility then of getting anything better than a satisfactory.
Well, no, I respectfully disagree. So you could certainly move around the design and testing dates, right? So if the 31st is set in stone, if that's go live, that's go live. I get it. That's not a problem, but you can get your testing and your design done early.
You really don't want to change the schedule of this type of implementation after you get it in.
I'm okay with that, but then it doesn't fit into what we're trying to do with our goals, and I'm okay with that too. You know, then maybe because of the cost, because of the implication to our citizens, I get it. This is hugely important, right? But
So why can't satisfactory be any date after December 31st? Let's say December 31st comes and goes and it's not
what
in implementation, that would be satisfactory, or that would be needs improvement? I mean, I'm asking. You,
well,
from
you
what we're
know,
hearing from Steve is you can't change the testing because first you have to deal with the conversion of the data from the old system. Then you need to bring it in and reformulate it into whatever you want it to do now, and how you're going to keep that data and create that database.
yeah, that's a valid question, and I would answer your question by saying yes, right? But what the problem we have here is we have a make it, don't make it, right? So it's all downside to the staff because if they can't do anything before, they can't, there's no opportunity to exceed expectations. If what you're telling me is it has to be on this day.
Well, and that's why I guess the opportunity to, for outstanding was completing it by that date on, under budget, which is something that is possible. But I think there's risk associated with adjusting the schedule or trying to accelerate the schedule.
So don't adjust the schedule, adjust the dollars is my response to that. So instead of under budget, if it's $20,000 under budget, that exceeds expectations. If it's $50,000 under budget, that's an outstanding.
And satisfactory is just a completion on the 31st.
Satisfactory is on the 31st and needs improvement is anything after the 31st.
Okay. I'm for that. Sounds reasonable.
Second.
No, he didn't make a motion. He just,
Well,
he's
he
just
didn't, I thought he
talking.
did.
That's my motion.
Okay, thank you. And a second. Discussion. Trustee Jan Miller, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I agree. This is, Steve, you tagged this particular item to residents' trust.
Mhm.
We have been faltering on utility bills for, I dare say, perhaps 2 years. And so this is something that we need to put forward, the metal to the pedal. I don't know what you want to call it, but if there are extra resources that you need, we already have hired resource people for this, plus staff. This is something, and it is the number one item that was on your list from this staffing place. So I think it's important to cover the trust with the village residents. That's all.
Further discussion. Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, the utility bills are quarterly, so March 31st, is that when the first bill is going out on this new system? So it's going to be done by December 31st. We're going to collect the data for the first quarter.
Right, right. And the March 31st bill will be the first bill that goes out with the new
So,
system.
and that's where the March 31st satisfactory came.
Right, right. And it does, I understand it overlaps, but that's,
So everything should be in place by December 31st. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Start collecting the data,
and we would be parallel testing.
parallel testing with the old system.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yes. Budget manager, yes.
Just in relation to the Tyler project, I pulled up the schedule, and the first week of 2023, we'll be doing the final parallel billing. And then the week of January 9th, 2023 through January 1st of 2023 is the solutions validation. So that'll be the final solution validation, will be the second and third week of January. So, and then the go live is March 2023.
So to just kind of expand on that, so the last quarter of 2022, there's a parallel test. And as Matthew mentioned, the evaluation of those tests takes place at the beginning of January. So it's not quite a clean cutoff date.
But it's prepped and ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Further discussion, motion to amend. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion. No further discussion. Trustee Baum.
Trustee Kaminsky, did you want to move item 3 up into 1A? Clear comments?
Yeah, I would like to actually do that. I will make a motion to move item 3 as just sort of a sub-bullet of the first item.
I think it does that, right? I don't think the numbers correspond, do they? I mean, 1 doesn't go with 1, 2 doesn't go with 2, because we have 5 items versus 4 goals.
No, I guess it's more on the goals. I want to move the goal if I'm going to do anything. Does that make sense, David?
No.
I thought what you were talking about earlier was taking,
I was taking number 3 and saying it's a sub-bullet of number 1, but that's under the time-specific goals.
I would
That's where I put my comment.
I would agree with that. That your improved employee engagement scores will be will help you to determine, or rather, you reach goal number 1, which is the improved retention rate for village employees.
It's a little confusing because we're calling the top 4 goals and we're calling the 5 additional things
You
goals.
could have 10. I mean, in order to get there.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. the
It's
way
what
it's
he's
split
come
up.
up with. Plus you have subsections of the 4. So if you wanted to count them all up, you would have probably almost 10.
Well, my motion would be to take number 3 under the lower set of goals and move it into number 1. as a subset of that, because it is talking about the same thing. That is my motion. And as I'd mentioned before, employee engagement scores feed directly into retention rates ultimately.
Correct.
But each is measured separately. I wouldn't combine them.
I would.
No, I wouldn't. But is that your motion? You can
No,
put,
that's, I'll
no,
withdraw
no,
it.
no,
No,
you can
that's
put it
okay.
out there.
That's all
I
right.
don't want to. Okay. Further discussion? No further discussion?
What-
Residents? Oh,
Objectives.
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 Yeah.
Sure. How do we get there?
Mhm.
That'll help us to achieve the goals. Yes, sir. Yes, you understand it correctly. Further discussion, trustee Hudson.
So it's the more measures we can get, the more objectives we can get, to me, the better, right? So, I certainly agree that engagement does play a role in retention. But I'd like to break those out and measure those separately, because we can get a better handle on what's going on with the village employees.
Right. And there's also other things that are happening in regards to, somebody mentioned some earlier discussions on what we thought we were going to be doing for employee retentions. Those are still going to happen. What we're doing is we're trying to put something to measure it, to say, yes, this happened, and because of that, this is what you see as a result of it. For before, we really had nothing that was measured. And what we had realized the last time that we had talked about goals is this year we need to put something in that shows the achievability of those goals by giving us something to measure it against, which we never really have done before. It's been more, I don't want to say opinion based, but our we've kind of thought, yeah, we think he made that, but there was nothing to say what we used to measure it against. This defines that. It holds it to a higher standard, to something that everybody can look at and say, he reached this goal, or the village reached this goal because of this, this, and this. And because of the measurements that are shown here. That's what I like about it. And I like this, the way that we're going forward, because next year it'll be better. And it'll be, I think, a little bit more detailed, and it will be a little bit better driven in regards to what we present for ability to measure. Trustee Jan Miller.
I'd like to add a, an objective, like number 6, that's just called communication. And we had talked in our last meeting about establishing or upping our newsletter. I think there was a newsletter at one time. There's 3 things: newsletter, identifying a person to maintain the EMC, and identifying somebody to update the website. I think those are important for communication with residents and building trust.
And that is your motion?
Yes. Number 6, ABC.
Motion made. Do I have a second to amend?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. I don't have a problem with any of it. I think some of that will be, again, some of that is some of the details of how we gain and improve trust with the residents. All. It's not as measurable. You're just saying we're doing it. You want to see these things occur, and that's part of the measurement. It's not a percentage. It's not, you want a newsletter out by X. We want the website updated by the
Yeah.
1st of every month. And
Right. That's good.
is that included in your motion?
I don't-
I don't want to add to your motion,
I would like
but I'm
that.
trying to get a definition like we have the other, others are defined a little bit closer
Okay.
to something that's measurable.
I would like a quarterly newsletter started by April 1st. EMC, identify a person to maintain it and update it on a weekly basis and update the website so it's current and more usable by June 30.
Okay, that's your motion?
That's my motion.
All right. And we had a second earlier. Is that okay with the second?
Yes, it is.
All right, motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Myers.
I was going to say another item that was talked about was putting something in the utility bills to inform different people on different aspects.
For information in regards to upcoming meetings and in regards to the 2050 plan, yes, that has been discussed. And it'll probably be done in
I'd like to
most
see that
cases so
done.
that we have more people that know when the meeting is and hopefully more participation.
Agree.
That is the goal.
Mr. President,
Mhm.
if I could just ask, so for this objective, what would be the, if we've added categories for needs improvement, satisfactory, exceeds expectations, outstanding, and I'm just wondering how that would be structured for this objective.
It would be satisfactory to meet the date that I mentioned, and then exceed expectation by making it a month earlier, 30 days, and then perhaps exceeding expectations or outstanding would be beating the date by 60 days or quarterly.
Okay.
Whichever applies.
Further discussion. Trustee Hudson.
So I certainly support the goals of communication and trust. I guess when we start trying to do something like this, so these objectives are to be downstreamed to every single department. And I don't think that every single department is on the hook liable, or I don't see how all of the departments play into this objective as it's been stated. And I mean, I get it and it's important, but how, how does this go to the Department of Public Works, or how do we hold the library director accountable for a village-wide newsletter?
And is that a question?
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah. So
Can I interject an answer to that or opinion? In past, the previous newsletter we had, they had sections for each of the different departments, and there used to be an email that went around for the person that was organizing and publishing the newsletter, that they wanted information from all the departments so that they could put it in, and they needed it by X date. And then there was a reminder that went out the next week, hey, the X date is coming up. I still need this, this, and this one from this person, and so on and so forth. But all departments did participate in the newsletter. All departments do participate in the website because all departments are in the website.
but they don't all update it. So if one person updates the webs, and I don't know what the structure is. So if we have one person updating the website, right?
Mhm.
And they quit, website doesn't get updated. And
Till we designate someone else to do it.
well,
Correct.
they give us no notice. So, and
That's
again,
against one of our goals. for extension.
I support this goal. This is just being mighty aggressive when we're implementing a brand new system.
I don't disagree with that.
No.
But it's up to the board to decide if that's something that they want to also put in. I mean, it's important to Trustee Jan Miller to add and have it stated. So that's why she's bringing it out as an amendment.
I get it.
Yes. Our new newsletter director. No, it's kidding.
Okay, I just have a couple comments. So we did have a newsletter when I first started. The only newsletter that has been missed is the one in January because we had a lot of things going on. So I can bring that back. April 1st is kind of pushing it just because I have to gather everything from all the departments, plus all the other, but I do understand that you guys want it back and that's fine. And I can definitely get it back. And they do all participate. So that does have all departments participating. But I am not the only one who updates the website. So we do have multiple departments updating the website as well. Park and Rec, Clerk's Office, Public Works, Planning. So all of them, I mean, the library doesn't have access to updating our website, but all of the other ones do. And then for the, I'm sorry, now, oh, for the electronic message board. So we, myself and Bree from the Park and Rec Department have access to that as well as the library. So there are 3 different groups that have access to putting things on there. And so with that, if there's an objective for what you want on there, that would be nice to know.
Who, if everybody puts, is there some sort of form? So let's say we wanted to get the people, the committee from MyFest want to get their festival.
There's a form on our website and I
Okay.
check that weekly. And then I review it weekly. But right now, nobody from the library has put it on, though I've talked to them about having one of their younger staff start making things up to put on the sign. But in the Park and Recs department, they put up their own.
Okay. They have access to it.
Yes.
So if the date is not easy, but it's a date.
And I can try my best.
If I could just add though, although then that's for satisfactory. And I think if we do want to roll these out, we still have to go through the process of assigning these and rolling these out to department heads. And it should be possible anyways to achieve the exceeds expectations and outstanding, which are 60 days. So I would suggest if you do want this and that we would set the target dates out far enough that it's possible to achieve an outstanding and exceeds expectations.
So would it be fair then to say that you're looking for a newsletter in June, September, and December?
That would work.
Okay.
You'd miss a festival, but that would work.
We put extra signs on the video board about it.
Yeah.
And it's on our website. And then they're actually, MyFest is actually very good about advertising their
Yeah,
event.
they are. I'm good with that. I'll
Okay.
amend the,
Further discussion on a motion to amend. Trustee Myers.
I hope it ain't 20 pages long like it was last time.
It is. It is, but that's fine. More detail is better than no detail.
Depends if you're reading it.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Next item under new business, unfinished business is Resolution 12-2022, allocation of American Rescue Plan funding. To give us more information on this and bring us up to date is the Budget Manager, Matthew Useldi. Matthew.
Yes, so in the packet, you'll have a recommendation or administration recommendation on an ARPA funding plan. This would separate the funds into 6 or 7 broad categories to be spent on the information listed. I'm gonna do is I'll pull this up here. So, sorry. Wait a minute. Oh,
Very nice.
there's my girlfriend. Sorry, Maddie. Yep. So here is on the left side, and show on my screen, it's a little more difficult, but on the left side, you'll see the funding plan as recommended by administration. On the right are a variety of alternatives if the board so choose to use, and there's space in there for changes as recommended by the board. But on the left side, you will see the recommendations by administration.
And if you'd like, I could just walk through some of these fairly quickly and give some explanation. And this is to just expand on what Matthew talked about. The recommendations, we talked about this being a menu, and that's sort of, the board asked me to come back with my recommendations. And those are listed there, but you can substitute any of the alternatives in. Under infrastructure, we plugged in $250,000 for street trees. We're currently about 10 years behind in replacing street trees that have been removed. And this would allow us to catch up and get the trees that have been removed and promised to the residents, we could get those out there. One of the other items that came up fairly frequently in discussions with the board as well as public input was related to road paving. This would add $500,000 to the 2022 Capital Improvements Program for paving. And the board would really have two choices with how to use this. One is the Public Works Director could look at next year's roads in the 5-year capital plan and accelerating some additional roads into 2022, or we could reduce borrowing by $500,000 and use $500,000 in ARPA cash to reduce future debt service. Under culture and recreation, we've included 3 items, $100,000 to do a preliminary conceptual design for library expansion to provide funding to get that expansion project moving forward. $30,000 to do a recreational trails plan that the Park and Rec Commission has been looking to get funded. And then $25,000, there were a variety of small park improvement projects that were submitted by the public and as well as discussed by the board, and $25,000 would give the Park and Rec Department some money to complete some of those small improvements to parks. Under technology, you may recall that during the budget process, the village board approved an upgrade of the ProPhoenix software. When we've been planning and evaluating for that upgrade, one of the things that our new IT consultant, Capital Data, identified is the hardware that the ProPhoenix software is sitting on, and that's the dispatch system. So when somebody calls at 911 and we send dispatch, it goes through ProPhoenix. That some of the hardware that the ProPhoenix system on is either has already either expired its support date or exceeded its support date or will be within the next year. And they're recommending that we replace that equipment. There also is some election equipment that would help to make our election processes more efficient and secure. That would cost $45,000. And I did include $50,000 for other hardware replacement as we're evaluating our systems. There are a number of different servers and things that are out of support and need to be replaced. Under business and economic development, I listed $85,000 going to the Tourism Commission. This would replace the revenue that they lost during COVID and provide some money for additional support for various community events that are coming forward in the future, and help to get some of those community events off the ground and basically restored to their pre-COVID status. Another big ticket item was Coveted Premium Pay, and this is structured on the plan that was discussed by the village board several months ago. That would make a premium payment to all village employees. If this is something the board is interested in, supportive in, and I guess with all of these, there would be additional steps to get approvals to actually spend the money. This would go back to GGF for additional details for final approvals before anything would be made. Under public safety, we included $100,000 to do a preliminary conceptual design for the police building. As we know, that needs significant work or replacement. And that was another item that came up in public input, and we put funding in there. Under customer service, did plug in, and this I think relates to the discussion that we had recently on goals and objectives, $40,000 to bring in a communications expert to look at at how we're communicating with the public and try to steer the limited resources we have in the most effective directions. You know, is a quarterly newsletter the best use of village resources? Does that reach the most people, or is there another method that would reach the most people? What specific types of improvements could we make to our website to make it more user-friendly? Could we be using social media better to reach out to the public? Something that we don't have in-house expertise. We don't have a communications expert on staff, and I think that would be a potential use of these funds. And then finally, village hall improvements. As we've learned from COVID, and as we have more people coming in during election time, we have more people coming in through Village Hall for permits and other types of things. This building is, like a lot of our facilities, it's still in very good shape. It's still a relatively new building, but there are some improvements that we feel we could design and make to improve the ability of staff to provide customer service. We're cross-training and utilizing a lot more staff to help out across offices, and the layout wasn't really designed for that. So I think we could make some improvements to improve the experience that residents have when they come in to interact with Village Hall. On the alternative side, we had discussed the possibility of using the ARPA funds basically like a COPS grant, where the ARPA funds would pay for 100% the first year, or 75% the second year, 50%, and then 25%. That would require, if we add firefighters or police officers, it would mean that the village board is basically committing to funding those positions in the future through the property tax levy as the grant funds expire. We did discuss the possibility of establishing a revolving fund loan in cooperation with Economic Development in Washington County, or potentially another organization that businesses could utilize to recover from the effects of the pandemic. And then we plugged in several different infrastructure items that came in, culvert repair and maintenance, water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure. Those dollar amounts are listed at $500,000. I think if you're looking to make a difference with the fund, I wouldn't go less than that, but it could be more. And then as an alternative, a smaller premium pay would utilize less of the ARPA funds. So just wanted to, maybe that wasn't as brief as thought, but tried to make it as brief as possible.
Trustee Jan Miller.
May we ask questions? So my question is, street trees. I want the trees to be replaced and updated. That's a great idea. However, we just approved 61 trees being planted for $18,000.
There's about 600 GIS identified locations where we're behind on trees, and it's about $300 a tree. So the math is about $180,000, which would catch us up to date. Ballpark numbers, please.
So I would reduce that by 50,000. And then my comment is road paving. $500,000 for road paving. We just moved, or we took Dennis can speak to this, $600,000 approximately from last year on a street which was it? 592, thank you. We moved that from 2021 to 2022, so that means that we probably have about 2.1 million in road repairs right now. And one of the top things that we were talking about, or that we had comments on from residents, was the library. So I would take the road paving maintenance, because it has to be maintained all the time. The expectation would be that we think that we have 2.6 million every budget year, which we don't unless we increase the levy. So I think the expectation may be misconstrued. So we'd have a big budget one year and then we'd go back to 1.5 million. And I don't think that's fair.
Can I think what Steve is talking about with and I don't mean to interrupt you, but just for clarity, the road paving would be used in replacement of borrowing. So you take the 500,000, you wouldn't put it on up top of what you're already borrowing for road, you'd take it away from your capital improvement borrowing, so you'd be borrowing 500,000 less.
I understand. I still disagree. I mean, we have to borrow that amount of money every year to maintain what we have, and we probably should borrow more.
But in defense of your other point, 500,000, what, Dennis? 526, whatever you said,
592.
is being carried over from 2021. So that also, if you decrease your borrowing 500,000 and carry that 500,000, you're really increasing that budget by, I don't know, 500,000, not by $1 million. And my question there is, obviously, we can't get all that projects done in a year, otherwise we wouldn't have any carryover, right? So I would ask, first of all, if we're going to be reducing it by that much, can we get that much road paving done in a season? And if not, then you could reduce it more.
If I can just clarify, the carryovers that were just approved by the board did not include any capital paving carryovers. We're still going through that account and determining what's available for carryover. So I don't know what the number is, and we haven't completed the close process for those projects.
And
Also know that if you reduce borrowing, you also reduce any increase it's going to have against next year's levy, because borrowing adds cost to taxes. So it's something to think about.
Our roads are only going to increase, and we're just getting more wear on all the roads.
Right, but you're cutting it. You're saying to take half of that and put it towards the library.
Yes,
Okay?
actually 300,000. So cut it down to 200. We had people come to the ARPA open session. We had at least 5 people asking for $300,000. We were told by Mr. Krecklow that $300,000 would probably cover architectural design, and that the library expansion is one of the ARPA fund approved items.
These all are.
So that is why. And we had public come up, five people in one meeting come up and ask for 300,000 for the architectural, 100,000 for an outside space, like a patio. The only other question that I have is, I really believe our employees need a premium pay. And what my expectation was, what was first discussed was the $1,500 per employee. Overall, down in customer service, this might be a good placeholder for an expert. We're outsourcing that. Is it something that we can actually create a position that would be a communications manager. So that I would fund. And as far as Village Hall improvements, I don't know when this building was built. When was this building built?
The plaque you walk by every day.
Yeah.
84?
Well, in the
I walk by it too.
you've been here longer. I'm not even here a year. Okay. I'm sorry. Well, the Village Hall improvements, I think $250,000 is generous. And I think that if the Village Hall needs perhaps equipment, or there was talk of some chairs or, desks and things like that, I think that would be a good idea. I don't know about rearranging the Village Hall because we have a nice hallway system, and it's clear when people come in, that they're seen by somebody. If there's no one in the first office, they can keep walking and somebody will find them. So I think that's a little high. And I believe that we should have a loan fund, but I think we should maintain it ourselves and not with the Washington County.
Okay.
Supposed to stay with the county, or was this money that was going to be our money? We would do a loan fund like the county's doing.
Well, what I would recommend is if the board was interested in doing that, it would be our money. It would be the village's money to distribute and to set the criteria. Economic Development Washington County has the mechanisms set up to administer loans, and we don't. And that's why I would suggest, rather than recreating or reinventing the wheel, they have those systems and processes set up, and we would take advantage of that. They wouldn't be deciding who gets loans. They wouldn't be deciding who qualifies for the loans, but they would be writing out the checks and collecting the money.
I don't like that. They have a very successful loan fund now that covers the county. I don't know if it needs our contribution.
Yeah, I agree.
If I would want it, I'd want it more for Germantown and under Germantown's control for Germantown business.
Requirements is
Right.
fine.
And that was brought up, in recollection of the sewer wars and the monies that were dispersed from the result of the sewer war millions. They were, at that time, the board decided to pass it out amongst all the utility users rather than creating a fund that the water and sewer utility could have used for expenditures and for maintenance. That's where that comes from. Comments? Just got to get it rolling, guys. I mean, Trustee Kaminsky,
Should we start making motions?
you can
to
do it
adjust this?
any way you want. Or you can pontificate about what you like and don't like, and then we can get into a motion about that later.
First of all, a couple questions. I understand from the resolution here that the money has to be expended by December of 2026. But when we say it has to be obligated by December of 2024, obligated meaning
A
we have to
contract
have
in place
so
or,
an approved bid for roads or whatever, contract in place
correct.
by 2024. So that only really does allow us reduction, obviously, on debt. We could use it. I really like to spend this on roads. Biggest complaints we get are roads. And the more money we can put into this and catch up on roads, I mean, it's nice to catch up on trees, but most people don't realize if a tree is missing. They realize if there's potholes in their roads, and they realize if their road is turning to gravel. And when I still drive around the village, there's still a big need for roads. I would up that road fund from $500,000 to say 750,000 at least.
In addition to what's already been budgeted?
I would put another 250 on that for the roads. I would. And I do agree that we can take some money out of the trees. Maybe cap that off at 175,000 as opposed to the 250. My biggest thing is the $3,000 for all employees, I think is frankly a bit outrageous. And I get it. We're thankful all of our employees worked hard during COVID, as did I, and as did probably most of us. But I think realistically, the $1,500 makes sense, not $3,000. I assume that's 166 employees, if I'm looking at the math correctly.
Approximately, and what I would say, whatever the village board approves, if anything, I would take back to GGF with specifics.
Okay, I would say a $1,500 is, that's a very nice thank you. That's a very nice thank you. Also, can we paint a water tower with this money? Or are we not allowed to do that? Because the water tower painting, the Mequon Road water tower, I've gotten like 6 calls on that in the last year and a half. Because we had promised we were going to paint that tower over a year ago. And we have done nothing, and it looks awful.
500,000 we got already.
Pardon?
We got $500,000. I think Martha can find that.
We already have the money for that?
It's in the budget.
Uh,
500,000.
Larry,
It's not in the budget.
Larry, let's, is there money in the budget for painting Mequon Road water tower? Or Steve?
You want to go? Or
anybody?
you want me to go? Oh, you want to go? Okay. Okay.
I'll just, there was a reserve that was created for water tower painting. And how much is in the reserve? Like 600?
600 some thousand.
600 and some $1,000. The village hasn't spent that money. And we were holding, because that is basically the cash flow, the working capital for the water utility as well. So while there is money that was set aside, that is the reserve fund for the water utility as well. Now, in March, we'll get our first quarter with the new water rates. And I think the plan was that in 2023, that there would be enough cash flow collected with the new water rates to be able to use the money that was saved for the water tower painting to actually paint the water tower.
Or you could maintain the reserve and put some of this money towards painting the water tower. We could actually get it done this year.
I don't think you can use ARPA funds to paint the water
You
tower.
cannot. Okay,
From my interpretation, you cannot.
okay.
That's just,
Because it's maintenance?
yeah, but to use it on water utility, it has to be infrastructure based.
Do we have something infrastructure based? We could put that money in and then we could free up the money to paint the water tower.
Shit.
We're going
To do that.
to be here a long time doing it that way.
Well, the infrastructure,
I will make a motion to reduce the COVID premium pay for employees to $1,500 per employee.
I'll second.
Am I
She's
reason?
gonna go
She's going to go through the whole thing.
go line for line then?
That's the one that's irking me the most, so I'm going to start right there.
Okay. Motion made. Who seconded?
Me.
I think it's definitely a good thing to reward our employees with COVID pay. But the $3,000 per employee to me just seems like a lot of money. And I think $1,500 per employee is also a nice reward.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Trustee Hudson?
So is this before I know how I feel about this, define the 166.66 employees for me, please.
That's what I had.
it doesn't work out exactly to 166. This would include for all full-time employees, whatever if it's a 3,000 or 1,500, but then we also have part-time employees at the library. We have part-time employees in the rec department. That I think if we're doing something, we should include them in it. We have election workers who worked through COVID. I wouldn't give them $1,500, but something. And so there is some cushion in here to allow us to, through GGF, give $1,500 for the, I believe it's about 140 that we have right now, full-time employees. And then some money left over that we could allocate among those part-time employees.
Well, just stay with me here for a sec. 1,500 times 166 is $216,000. So you want to give the full timers 3,000 and then
No, I
I'm just
think,
trying to understand where we're at, Terry. Go ahead, Steve.
we would, no, we would, either way, if the board selects 3,000, then the full-time employees would get 3,000. If the board selects 1,500, the full-time employees would get $1,500. Then the part-time employees would, and we haven't sat down and worked through all of the numbers yet. We wanted to see where the board was leaning, if at all, in any of these directions. We would look at the part-time employees and then present something to GGF with some specific numbers.
And is the intent to prorate, or do they have to have been here since March 13th of 2020?
That's an issue we'd have to work out and present at GGF.
So anybody hired this year would be out.
Anybody hired this year is out.
I think those are questions that I would take to GGF and say, or what about employees who left in February? Would they, and that's a question for the board to decide.
Trustee Baum.
Would it be better to state a top dollar value you want to spend on this? Because Trustee Hudson, as you said, it's $216,000. But if you're going to be including the poll workers, I didn't think we're going to give a poll worker $1,500. I didn't think we're going to give a part-time person $1,500. So we're going to give $1,500, $500.
We don't know, the other part we don't know yet. All we know is a full-time for sure. And then the other one would be dispersed with whatever remains, or if there would be a remainder thereof, it could then be put into another line item.
So that's why I asked the question, should it really be a COVID premium pay, and what's the top dollar we want to spend? $200,000? Please.
Just looking at the alternative here, which is $1,500 per employee for a total of 200.
Right.
So I'm thinking of it as it's okay with the second.
Total.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
That's good. I
Thank
like
you.
that.
And that is all right with the second?
Yes, I agree.
Further discussion? Or you still have the floor, Trustee Baum?
No, that was what I was trying to understand is
Okay.
we're at, not at $1,500 per person, we're at a total.
Further discussion then? Trustee Myers?
I'd like, keeping in mind what we went through with this last budget, getting an extra police officer, I'd like to get one police officer and one firefighter from the alternatives and put it into the administration's part by taking out the customer service aspect.
True, but right now, that can be looked at in future motions. Right now, we're just dealing with the one single item of the COVID premium payment. But your concern can be brought up in other motions. So
Duly
we're
noted.
just voting on one thing,
You're right.
one thing only.
You're right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Further discussion? No further discussion. Trustee Hudson?
I do have to agree that $500,000 is rather generous, and the number that's being tossed about here, $1,500, that I put that number out there. So when that number was put out there, that was put out there as a single payment, discussing half of this. I am in support of giving more than $1,500 to our employees. And I do agree that we all were impacted by COVID, but not to the same extent. I can see cutting that down some, maybe 400,000, but I would like to up that from $1,500 if that's the top end, maybe $2,000 on the top end.
But the limit still right now is within 250,000. Is that what you're discussing, or you're?
Yeah, I'm debating that. I'm saying I don't like that. It's not enough.
Okay. Are you looking to float an amendment to,
No, that's just my opinion.
okay, got it. Further discussion? Trustee Baum?
Much like other financial things, I really don't like saying yes or no to them until I know what the numbers are. If $2,000 per the full-time is what we want to go with, what are the other ones? I'd like to see the whole plan
That's-
before we discuss them.
But that's part of the GGF.
Yeah.
Function. You've got a number that you have up to 250,000, GGF breaks it out.
Okay.
And then that becomes, their discussion, then it comes to this board to approve, that we approve within the $250,000, this is how we're breaking it out.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Kaminsky.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Nay,
Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Trustee Baum?
Can I have a discussion or a timeline as to what buildings we have on our track for constructing? I know we got the DPW coming up. When is the police station scheduled to be done?
The police station was next in the 5-year capital plan to be worked on. I believe we were looking at conceptual design in 2023, with full design, complete design in 2024, construction starting in 2025.
So, and then these improvements to the village hall, this is just, since we got the money, let's think about doing it. We didn't really have this slated.
No, it's been a capital request for, in the last few budgets that didn't make it in because we were trying to stay under the borrowing amount.
Right.
This looked like an opportunity to, to catch up to an area that doesn't, where a lot of residents come through. There's a lot of customer service impacts and to look like an opportunity without borrowing the money to make some of those improvements that have been out there.
Okay, and then the library is kind of jumped to the head of the line for some reason. Did we have a timeline when we were going to redo the library? Why is this jumped in front of the pack right now?
It was an area where there were residents who identified this as a specific need. The library board has identified this as a specific area that they're requesting that it get moved up. The library is currently going through a strategic planning process to, I think, get a better handle on what the library needs are going to be in the future. And I think the timing of this, when they complete that strategic plan, would make sense to then move on to sort of a conceptual design. What type of expansion could take place at the library in order to meet the future needs?
Okay, so in those 3 items, the police department, the library expansion, and the village hall improvements, there's not enough money in there to do anything substantial for any one of them. If we truly are going to be building a new police station in 3 to 4 years, we need to start the design on that in earnest. $100,000 is barely going to get you conceptual. And conceptual is not what we need at this time. We've learned it through the Public Works building. We need to get more information, more on paper before we can really move forward with that. That is truly the next building that is slated for construction and reconstruction. I would get rid of the village hall improvements, get rid of the library, and put it all into the police department so we can get one building done correctly. So I'm going to make a motion to eliminate the village hall, eliminate the library expansion, and put it all into the police department building.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. I have a little problem supporting that. And the reason is, I'm not saying that all the police department is important. It isn't. It's in my wheelhouse. It's something that we've talked about forever and that I want to get started in any way we can. $100,000 to start it at least puts $100,000 more than what it has had before or from any future budget. So it is a good starting point. I don't discount the 250,000 total for Village Hall improvements, but I think there are some improvements that need to be made, and that's just plain customer service. And that makes it better for residents. And if it makes better customer service for our residents, I'm all for it. And any improvements there within customer service of either helping to give a better appearance of how the glass looks, or a better flow, or maybe an easier layout for where most residents are coming to this building for. I think that's an improvement that really needs to be considered because it's for the residents. It's, there are some benefits of Village Hall staff, of course, but this building serves our residents, and any improvements we can make to it, I'm in favor of. I'm not looking to eliminate the library expansion. We've heard from residents, and there is a strong contention, more than what we heard, that are in favor of that. And I would either look at keeping it as it is, or maybe increasing it slightly, because they were requesting $300,000 or $800,000, I think I've heard at one point, as part of these funds. And I think that based on where they're at, I think they're ahead of our police department a little bit in planning and in funds of their own. So it does kind of move itself into that position, and they're a little bit unto their own in regards of how they govern themselves, even though we help to support them. Anything that would take it off our backs, meaning the whole residents in our budget, I think this is a good time to do that within. I don't disagree with your police department. I have some reservations, and when I look at any projects of building around the village, like the Department of Public Works, what's that going to look like in 20 years? What's it going to look like in 25 years? I have a hard time, and that's me, envisioning what a library is in 20 years from now. So that's part of my reservation that I'll get past, and then I'll listen to everybody else, and you can influence me any way you want, including Trish, who I would expect you to fight very hard for, and I'm willing to listen. So I don't want to take that off. We can be here for another hour and a half whacking these things back and forth, or we can take some broad strokes and then start to define it out of there. And I've got a recommendation that I've been scratching out on paper that I can throw out there, and you can look at it any way you want. But I think we need to look at this in a bigger picture and then bring it down to the details. It's a gift that we're not used to, but at the same time, we got to be smart with and make sure that we serve the people that are going to be benefiting from it, and at the same time accommodate what they think is important, not what we think is important. And it's easy to put needs on what we see and know about every day, because Terry has said many times, we'll never run out of things. There's always something, always, always. I'm not done, I got you. But
It's good they said you were away.
but I think when it comes down to residents and what they feel is important is, first and foremost, as we've always said, it's public safety. Secondly, it's streets. Now break it any way you want from there. But those are the top two for me. I'm not looking to eliminate the road paving, but I would take it in half. And that would pay down whatever we have to borrow, because that also reduces taxes for the following year. If we can take 250,000 out of borrowing for roads and use this money for that's a win. That's a win not only for the roads itself, but it's also a win for the residents, because it doesn't fall down on next year's taxes based on the borrowing that we do. I would also look at the Village Hall improvements, and I would probably take it down to $150,000. And that difference that I would take of $100,000, I put on the library. It's all village buildings. These things were built about the same time. So it kind of makes sense to me to disperse one funds for the other there, because these buildings pretty much went up within the same year. I'm sorry?
200 now,
For which one?
library.
It takes it and adds 100,000 to it.
It still
The
doesn't.
trees,
do
I
your-
would take off 50,000 and add 200,000. The employees you already took in half. And from that, then you end up with about $750,000. And that doesn't include the 100,000 I put to the library. And with that $750,000, I would look at additional employees to the police and fire department, because that is the second or most important thing that people are looking at. And crime is not going down in this village. and calls for service are not going down in this village. And we start to need to look at a serious way to staff that. This gives us a leg up on that. Otherwise, you're going to have to start budgeting for it next year. From scratch is hard, but at a running start where this helps to fund it, and then you get 50%, 50%. We've done that before successfully. We did it with our fire department when we went to full-time. And we did it successfully. And by the time we got to the budget where it took it fully on, we had the revenues there to cover it. This gets those people there without taking the full hit on next year's budget. They're needed. They're absolutely needed. And I look at public safety as number one. So that's my recommendation. You guys can cut that pie any way you want, but I'd rather go on broad strokes. Otherwise, we can knock around every one of these for the next hour. Trustee Kaminsky.
With the motion being on the floor, I think what you were saying is purely logical. It really is. My problem with some of the things I'm hearing here is we're looking at this as like free money. So let's give the library 200,000 when we know it takes 300,000 for them to do the architectural design. And then we're going to have to borrow to build a library, right? The addition, which is going to be more than a couple of million, I'm sure. Right, but I mean, so wouldn't this architectural plan that we're going to be doing in the next year or two be outdated by the time we have the money for the library? I mean, I'll listen to the architect though. Okay, but what David is saying is totally logical, to lump that money together and get something done. We can't think of this as free money. We all paid taxes. That's where this money's coming from. And it's so easy to say it's free money. Let's throw 100 over here, 100 over there, knock down a couple walls in Village Hall, make it modestly better. We've lived with it. What's another couple years or 3 years before we redo the whole thing anyway? I just think I want to keep this money, and maybe it will take another hour of discussion. I do want to see it improving roads, maybe redoing roads that we had not thought we were going to do over the next 2 years. That's something that directly benefits our constituents, something they see every day. Plus, even if we just took next year a $500,000 out of our borrowing budget, that's one of the snowplows fitted out is like 250 to 300,000. If you just keep in your head, keep taking these things back and forth, there we're saving money for the village by spending this money wisely and not saying, we have all this money, let's throw 100 there, 100 here, 100 there, and we get nothing done. So honestly, I support what David's saying. It makes sense to me. And I don't support taking money away from the roads.
I got a motion and a second.
Yeah.
To remove all funding from the library, and what was the other one?
Lump it together to actually get a plan done for the police department.
Okay.
Village Hall, Police Department, and Library, put it all into the Police Department. Because that is what we've got scheduled.
That will save us
and
money.
that's scheduled for years.
Trustee Hudson.
I guess what exactly was not exactly, but 250 doesn't go very far. Were there thoughts about what we were going to do with that 250 in Village Hall?
Yeah, the thought was looking at the temporary plexiglass that's up, which was just a temporary solution and is not intended to be permanent. I think some of the signage and thinking through the traffic flow of people coming in, where do they go to pay a utility bill, and does that match where the staff are from the utility? And potentially doing some modification of the walls, if it's possible, between the areas so that staff that are working in multiple areas can get more quickly when there's a resident over at the desk that says administration and clerk, can get over there from the desk that says finance without having to go all the way around, and can respond more quickly.
How much longer is this building going to last?
Well, we just put a new roof on 2 years ago that
20 years.
at least.
So the intent is our Village Hall that was built in 1984 is going to last us to 2042. That's what we're saying.
How long did the last one last?
With
Tim?
proper maintenance, it could last 75, 100 years.
How long were we in the last one?
But we're still in the last one, just not us.
As a village hall?
Yeah.
That's probably 30 years. 5, 10, 15,
Yeah.
50? Oh, we got 20 more years.
I'll be
But
gone by then.
And it's a question for you. Do we have to specify exactly where the funds are going when it comes to building improvements? Like we have to say Village Hall, library, or can we say Village Hall building improvements?
Are you referring to the reporting to the treasury?
Yeah.
We'll have to be a little more specific as when we report, but in terms of the resolution, that's sufficient.
And when do you report?
Quarterly, I think the first one is due at the end of this month. But if you
So
don't
we'd
spend
have to
anything,
have
you don't have
something
to.
more detailed by the end of the month.
You only have to report as you expend. So if you don't spend anything, then
I love your plan, David, I really do. But I'm thinking this is, again, more of a GGF thing. If we could lump it together as building improvements, we could go back and define what we need to do.
So then you're looking at
And not
pushing
sit
it
here
to
all night
committee?
fighting about it. Pardon?
You're looking at pushing it to the committee?
I am. Just, but I mean, not delaying the resolution. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
No.
I think you need to delay the resolution if you're going to take it back to committee to define what's spent where.
But I was just told that we don't have to.
If I could, Mr. President, clarify a bit, and I think what we're looking for with this resolution is some general direction on where the village board wants the money spent. The resolution is not set up to authorize any expenditures. So like when we were talking about the COVID premium pay, that would have to go back to GGF for the details of that to get worked out. And I think you can put things in some broad categories. What the budget manager was referring to was the question of reporting to Treasury. And at some point, we'll have to report to Treasury, but we don't have to do that until money's actually spent. So, and we'll have to provide that information in detail, but that is further down the road.
So could we say $500,000 for building improvements? And lump it like that tonight?
Or you could just pass the resolution and work those details out, is what you're saying.
Yes.
So in other words, we don't have to do anything with any of this.
Well, you can, if you would come to some sort of conclusion tonight, which I think in about 2 hours we would have. Or you can say, we passed the resolution as to say that we're willing to take and spend these funds in the time that they've allotted us to do that, and details to come. And then you would put that through GGF, and each of those would come back to this board.
We've got a motion.
We do.
Mhm.
We're still in discussion.
Can we,
Or you could choose to table it or postpone the details and go straight to the resolution, however you want to work it. But we do have a motion on the floor. Trustee Chan Miller.
I just wanted to say, I agree with you on how to do the spending. Keep the library in there. I mean, time after time, we have residents come up. We asked where they wanted to spend the ARPA funds. We had 5 people in one meeting show up for the library funding. The infrastructure is there. And it's just a matter of how many cubicles to put in there. There is no more space to ready some of the events that we put together, and we utilize the meeting rooms for assembling. And so we are out of space. So the intent when the library was built was to expand and have a second floor. They just didn't finish it, but the infrastructure is there. The library has a strategic plan. It will be ready next month, April of 2022. I think that the library, contrary to what Trustee Baum says, is the further along than the police station. We already have in the budget, or in this ARPA fund, the upgrades for the Pro Phoenix and the hardware equipment that they really, really need. And if we put some of the money toward extra police and fire people, then I think we'll be doing a service. So I like President Walter's plan for keeping upgrading the library expansion to at least 250,000. lowering the trees and lowering the road paving to $250,000.
Okay. Further discussion, trustee Baum.
Police department has been on the slate for at least 10 years that I've been in this
15.
position. 15 years? Great. 15 years. They have sacrificed their place for years.
Mhm.
They are working with outdated systems, outdated equipment, outdated space. They have built garage after garage after garage out back for evidence storage. That's not the most secure building in the world. We need to bring our police department up to today's standard and not have them working in our old village hall in two separate buildings,
It's a library.
library,
Mhm.
without proper equipment. We've never given them new furniture we've given them some over the
We
years.
upgraded the whole front office when we established the communications center.
The communication center, but the old library, the front building, they wanted to remodel that at one point and it never got remodeled.
Mhm.
They've been putting it off and putting it off until it was their time. And we told them it was their time in 2 years. And now we're not going to have enough funds set aside to get this done because we're going to spread it out over 3 different projects and not have enough money to effectively do any of them. So if we're going to be building a building in 2 years, now we need to start the design process.
I
We don't know when the library is going to be built. Yes, they have money, but we don't know what we're going to fund for it, what we have to fund for it. It's not in our
Mhm.
program to do anything with it right now. We haven't slated a slot for it. Police department has waited its time. It's time to do the police department.
And I don't disagree with you on the building aspect, but I don't like the statements of equipment and systems because we do upgrade those. And anything that they've asked for in regards to equipment or systems or police cars, and in most cases, as much as we can for employees, they've been given. So I wouldn't disagree with the point of everything in the police department because we do keep them up and we keep their training up and we give them K-9 support and we give them new police cars and we give them all the equipment. The building is another matter. And I agree with you on the building, but I don't like the broad brush of all the systems because that's not true. Because then it makes it sound like we are not supporting our police department and keeping it updated to fight the crime that they fight every day. We do that as a village board. We just need to put them in a better building. Trustee Kaminsky.
I'd like to make an amendment to Dave's motion. And the amendment is to take $500,000, just adding up what's all the building things here and adding 50,000 to it from the trees. And just put that in a building fund to be determined by GGF at a future meeting, how that would be divvied up. That's my amendment. Just in the sense to get this thing rolling.
Second.
So we can get home tonight.
It's a motion to amend
Motion to amend.
at 100.
I said 500,000 into a building fund. Just take a 500,000.
So you're changing some of them.
Yeah, you're $50,000 short, but we're going to take that out of the trees or whatever ultimately. But I think we have to move this to GGF is my point. And I think we do want to do something, but this motion isn't going to make it because we're going to debate it all night. So that's why I'm making the amendment. Take a $500,000, put it in a building fund. We can determine whether it's village hall, police station, library, or whatever in GGF where this belongs.
You're taking your 50 out of the trees?
Yep.
He's just putting it aside to add up to 500,000.
Up.
Correct.
500 or 550?
500.
500. All right, motion made to amend. Did we get a second?
Yes.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on a motion to amend. Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I tend to agree with this, that we're just going to debate this all night of where it can all go. Let's put it in a building, put 500,000 down. I looked at that police building as like subtle improvements to the building, not as a design plan. I'm assuming that's what the 100,000 was going to be for.
No, it was for the start of a design.
It was for the start of a design. That doesn't get you too far.
But it gets you something,
It gets you a little.
100,000 more than it is today.
But the clock is ticking, right? 2026 is when
25, I think.
25.
Yeah, in the capital plan, construction would be 2025.
This is almost going to be like a budget meeting to get all this allocated.
Yep.
So I tend to agree. Let's move it back to GGF. Let's have a special meeting. Let's have a committee of the whole. It doesn't matter, but I think we have to really sit down and do a deep dive in this.
Okay. Further discussion on a motion to amend. Trustee Jan Miller.
This is very detailed and everyone seems to have a passionate opinion about how we allocate this money, and it is important. Does it perhaps, since we just got this, would it help if we sent in our ideas?
We've done that already in a sense of in the previous meetings. That's what's gotten us to this far because administrative and recommendations with alternatives, that was, came from village board and also from village staff. So you've kind of pooled both areas of thought and from the meetings that we had, and this is the list that they came up with from those three areas. So you kind of have that in front of us. That's why it's cut the way it is. Further discussion on the motion to amend? Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Baum. Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Nay.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, back to the motion as amended. Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote again, please.
Trustee Baum. Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Jan Miller. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Just one question. We still have funds to allocate, right?
You have,
Correct, 250,000.
yeah, 750,000 have been allocated.
250,000 is remaining.
Remaining, right, and that's the 250,000 that was taken out of the COVID
Right.
premium pay.
I'll make a motion to add that to the road paving.
Second.
Can we
750 for
define-
road paving and, again, till 2025. We've got 3 years to use this.
Right, and how do you want it used? Do you want to use it in addition to what's been budgeted, or do you want it to use to pay down debt?
No, I'd love to use it in addition too. I mean, that is the number one complaint we get. The number one question that comes out every time is, what about the roads? So if we can add some funding to the roads and improve some of the smaller roads or accelerate it, I think we're better off.
We had a motion. Did we get a second?
Yes.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. I think it's number 2. Number 1 for me is public safety, and from what I've always heard, it's always been public safety. But I don't disagree that additional funding isn't needed and it's a good opportunity. I would prefer to see it to pay down debt and borrowings because that has a bigger impact directly to the residents. But if you want to try to add road construction projects of 250,000 to a yearly schedule, my question then is to Larry, is that achievable? Because we already took 500,000 from last year and brought it forward. Helps, but can we schedule that much road construction and get it done in the year's time, or call it 2 years' time? Okay. Further discussion? Trustee Baum.
I'd like to bring up the water and sewer infrastructure. Are we hearing more complaints about roads or now the water and sewer because we've increased the bill by 83%?
We increased the water utility so that it pays for itself and it's not running in the red anymore.
I
And the
understand.
sewer has not been increased.
Okay, so we've increased the water bill by 83%. Heard comments that they would prefer that, residents would prefer that number be offset somehow. Got an opportunity to take 500,000, 250, instead of doing a 250 for roads. Is there any interest in doing 250 towards the water.
Administrator.
If I could just point out, and we did get a lot of comments along those lines but the issue is that using part of this money to pay for any water infrastructure wouldn't have any impact on residents' water bills. So even if we took the whole $2.1 million and spent it, it would help us to catch up on some of the water infrastructure, but it wouldn't have any impact on residential water bills.
Further discussion? Trustee Hudson.
I think everybody in the village can agree that we have some issues with roads. But at the same time, our fire and our police department is also underfunded and understaffed in terms of personnel too. And the number of calls, I think 20 years ago, it was 400 calls a month, and currently we're doing about 2,000 calls per month in our fire department. I would, this amount of money, and again, this is not saying that the roads are not important, but this money when we've already committed I'd like to consider that, please.
You show 500, 100, 100, and 250, which is 950?
I just have those as placeholders of what was originally there. The remaining funds is located down here. So if the motion was passed, there'd be no remaining funds left.
Correct.
Okay.
This was the original. The 500,000 was the original.
Trustee Kavitsky.
We know what we're getting with the roads. It's a done deal. You put a road down, you repave something, it's paid for, you walk away. We use this money to hire a police officer. We did hire a police officer in our last budget.
We did.
And we plan on trying to make that effort again to hire again next year. If we use this money, not reoccurring, once that money's gone, and who knows what's going to happen with this economy, we all see what's happening with inflation. We all see what's happening with a potential war in Europe. We all see these things happening that could have a dramatic effect on our economy a year or two from now, when that bill's going to come due to continue to pay for that police officer. And are we going to be able to raise the taxes or to be able to do that? See, this is just a stopgap. We all know that, right? That we can afford the officer for maybe a year with his squad car, for example, maybe a year and a quarter. But then he comes online and taxpayers have to come up with the money. Our constituents have to come up with the money, or we have to fire that person.
Mhm.
And there's no going back once you hire somebody for public safety. That's why I feel more comfortable using this for something concrete that we can pay for with this money, and our constituents can drive on it and see that we've used this money wisely. And we can continue, hopefully with our development as it's going right now, if the economy holds up, we'll be able to pay for those, an officer or two again next year. That's the way I prefer to do it.
We have done it that way in the past, though. And it's bridging. I would call it bridging, where you bridge it for a year and a half or two, and then eventually.
You never know
you
what
have
you're
the funds.
bridging to. That's the problem.
But we've done it already successfully. And that's how we added a lot of full-time people to our fire department.
Never been in 2023.
Trustee Myers.
What would be the cost of adding one firefighter and one police officer?
Take your 500,000, divide by 3.
Yeah, so the total cost, and this was back when we talked about the public fire protection, the total cost of the average officer, including salary, benefits, social security, all that, is about 108,000 per officer, not including a vehicle and that type of equipment. A firefighter was slightly less, somewhere in the 90,000.
Maybe 250,000 with a vehicle?
Per officer?
One police officer and a vehicle and one firefighter, maybe
That-
250?
That'd be a fair guess, yeah.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion Trustee Jan Miller.
I don't like the idea of putting everything in the road paving. Yes, the roads need improvement. We are working on roads every year. It's one of our goals, but we always have a budget. And we've stayed within the budget, or there's carryover, so we already have extra projects for this year. I think that we'll get even more pushback from residents if we can't keep them safe, or if we can't get the ambulance there on time because there are too many calls. So they get 3 calls at one time. So I don't understand why we once again discredit residents that come before this board and ask for money that's going to a community library that a lot of people use, not only in the village of Germantown, but within the Germantown area, and reach a lot of people. And so it started at 800, then it went to 300, it was pulled away down to 100, and now you want to take that away. I don't understand that. But I do understand that if we don't keep our citizens safe, regardless of the cost, they will not be happy. And I think that we should have some money in there for the library expansion, and we should have something in there for public safety, and specifically for a police or a firefighter, whichever is needed more.
Further discussion? Trustee Nyrider.
I've asked this question every time. I'll ask it of you again. When we're talking about personnel, and I don't have anything about adding police, fire, whatever, but my understanding was with this, that the recommendations is supposed to be that it is something more permanent, like we're talking about with roads, instead of hiring personnel or whatever, because that's going to be a continuation after that. Is that written into some of the suggestion or whatever of these rules?
Yes, GFOA, General Government Finance Officers Association, their best practices is to spend on one-time capital projects or one-time costs.
Do you have that here that you can read that into the minutes?
I don't have it on me. It is on their website, and I have it in a document.
But I've asked
not
that
in here, but
because I remember either you or Steve brought that up the first time we talked about this. And while again, I don't oppose this, but I just say that we're bending the rule. We're gonna make future budgets, future boards have to look at this in a very difficult way down the road. And the last thing we want to do is hire somebody and then a year from now or 2 years from now say, I'm sorry, we could afford it that year, but now we can't.
Further discussion? Could we restate the motion, please, so we all know what we're voting on?
Motion by Rick Miller, second by trustee Kaminsky, to move an additional $250,000 to road paving from the COVID premium pay.
And with that, that leaves no monies available for any of the alternatives, correct?
correct.
Thank you. Further discussion? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the need for public safety. The reason that I thought of this for road paving is, number one, it is a one-time distribution. Number two, we are going through a restructure in the police department. We're actually voting on one of those tonight. We've added an officer this year. We've continuously added, since I was on the board when it was a part-time fire department to now a full-time fire department. I think we've done a fantastic job in 8 years getting to a full-time position the way that we're at. I don't doubt that we need firefighters and officers. I don't want to spend this on it. I think we're doing the right thing by adding it in the budget when we can. I know that the fire department has a master plan and the police department has a master plan to do that. So that was my reason to move it to the roads.
Further discussion? Trustee Myers.
I'm going just the opposite. I'd like to see that 250,000 spent for one police officer, one firefighter, and what's it called. So I will be voting against the amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Nay.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Nay.
Trustee Myers.
Nay.
Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That takes care of this item?
That's up to you, Mr. President.
I think the rest of it can then be dispersed through, right, now the resolution. We haven't put a motion out. We've kind of picked at it here.
Motion to approve the resolution as amended.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Nobody raised their hand. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Nay.
Trustee Myers.
Nay.
Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
Trustee Baum. Trustee Hudson.
Nay.
President Walter.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right. 43. All right, that take care of this item under unfinished business. We can then go on to new business, starting with new business item A, temporary Class B and wine license, Deutschstadt Heritage Foundation for My Fest celebration located at North 112 West 16240, Mequon Road, which is the Marketplace parking lot on May 20th through the 22nd of 2022. May 20th from noon to 1 a.m., May 21st, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m., and May 22nd from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item under new business is item B. The following have applied to the village board of the Village of Germantown, Washington County, Wisconsin for a Class B fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor license for the period commencing March 7th, 2022 and ending on June 30th of 2022. Mateo's, which is located at West 156 North 11058 Pilgrim Road. Carla M. Cortez. Premium description includes bar area. Premise description includes bar area, main dining area, and during summer outdoor patio area.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. This is Aldos. Okay, thank you. Just so for those watching. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item under new business is item C, Police Department restructuring of lieutenant position with sergeant.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, or Chief Snow, is he still on with us via WebEx? Chief, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, this would just be moving along through that restructuring process, much like we did when Lieutenant Schreihart retired and replaced him with the sergeant. We still have that eligibility list that is in existence. We would be looking to replace Lieutenant Jim Thiep's position. He just retired last week with Officer Jared Spreiter. He's been with us about 5 years on the TAC team. He's done a great job for us. So we would be looking to promote him to the position of sergeant.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? No further discussion. Is this considered cost? Or is this process?
This is just a position change.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Next item under new business is item D, ordinance 01-2022, 2020 land use plan amendment from agricultural conservation residential to industrial office. Ordinance 02-2022, rezoning from B5 highway business to M1 limited industrial district and 2-lot certified survey map for Grant Moore, agent for Moore Designs, Inc. and MD Development LLC, which is the property owner located at West 193, North 10980 Kleinman Drive, and Christopher West, agent for Pace Property Management LLC, property owner located at North 112, West 19225 Mequon Road.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Questions?
Nope. Is that the planning commission?
Jeff still here?
It's all good.
It's all good. Do we have any visual?
The CDL.
To the-
Here we have a presentation. Oh, Emily's here. I'm sorry, Emily.
If we could get the podium laptop up on the screens in the room, please. Okay, so this is just a future land use map amendment, rezoning application, and then a two-lot certified service survey map, really just to relocate a property line between two properties. This is adding additional property to the parcel on the north side and taking away from the parcel to the south.
Questions? Nope. All right, further discussion? Trustee Chan Miller.
Is this, doesn't this include some sort of a parking lot platform?
Yeah, they're going to be expanding the parking lot on the northern parcel. The parking lot will be expanded to the south.
And isn't it going to be going into a wetland?
It wouldn't be going into the wetland area, no.
Okay.
The packet does say impacted
Yeah,
wetland, 18,000 square feet. That is in the packet.
Okay.
Get the visual back up.
But that was undeveloped. Putting all that land back in there.
I need you to.
I don't have any problem.
Sure. Could you come up then and pass it and we'll look at it?
Tell them what they're looking at.
How much of a wetland is being delineated?
Yeah, none. Yeah.
So you're within the 25-foot setback? Okay.
This is not a problem. It's not affected.
Did you grab that, Brian? We'll just pass it down and you could probably recollect it at the end.
Yeah, so you can take that. So as anybody can see on here, when it comes across, hard for anybody else on WebEx to see, but there actually isn't at this time any motion to put parking lots in there. This is just moving the lots at this point in time. Director Retzloff has Chris West, the other Pace Property Management owner, has some contingencies for him to go through before he exercises that. So this at this point in time is literally just a.
Right. I understand. What you're saying is you were just voting to change the lot lines, and because of that, you're changing some of the designations of zoning so that they both match whatever lot is trading for whatever lot. But at this time, there's no plan being proposed for what the parking lot looks like or what it's going to be encroaching. And that'll come forward under a different meeting and before this board at a different time.
So why is that in there?
Why, it's background from, we probably discussed it at our plan commission meeting.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I see.
Any further discussion on this motion or ordinance, I'm sorry, for new business item D? Thank you for bringing that forward. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item is new business item E, Germantown Historical Society Dinesville Park Lease Agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item is item F, Department of Public Works Building Tax Increment District Feasibility Study. With us tonight, we have representation from Ehlers, and is it Jonathan Schatz? Jonathan Schatz is with us to fill in for Phil Cosson, or actually to present. Phil's not here, so it's Jonathan's show. And he'll be giving us information. You have a handout in front of you.
If I may, just before Jonathan starts, I just wanted to make sure that the village board was aware. The handout that you have in front of you had changed significantly from what was in the packet. As you know, this is a topic that we've been working a lot of hours on, trying to keep things moving along quickly. At a meeting on Friday, we learned that there were some costs that I had initially provided to Ehlers that did not include some significant grading expenses. That they weren't included in some of the initial estimates that we had. Over the weekend, those were updated and incorporated into the new information. So apologize that there was that change. And we're also working to figure out our technical difficulties here so that the revised presentation can be up on screen for anybody who's watching at home. But I wanted to explain that before Mr. Schatz started his presentation.
Sure. Designate any of those dollars to technology? Oh, we didn't.
Well, good thing I had those printouts made anyway.
Yes.
Old fashioned. My name is Jonathan Schatz, by the way. I'm the other half of the Ehlers advisory team that you never see. So good to see. I think I've been in front of this board maybe one time in the last several years.
Just to interject, he does all the work.
That should hopefully that's clear. And in fact, Phil left for a nice warm place this week, so I have the pleasure of actually being here. The feasibility summary that I passed out walks through the initial concept for what would be Village's tax incremental district number 9. And, really off the top, it aims to target 2 of the near-term goals of the village, one being constructing the DPW building and the other being, potentially increasing square footage for possible industrial development. So working with Steve and staff to look at a site that was found that would be good for this, but needs infrastructure in order to be used for the DPW building. We thought about, what if a TID was to be created for the remaining land on that site for some of that development to help pay for that infrastructure that needs to be there. This plan assumes that the village would create this new industrial tax incremental district and use the village to finance the construction of the DPW building and the TID to help pay for the infrastructure on the site. The numbers, I have to apologize, since we were updating today, some of the numbers here are a little bit outdated now. It's almost like there's 2 stories being told here. So this first page, the initial concept, that's what I've just giving an overview on. But the numbers that are mentioned there, 5.6 million for the purchase of the site, 6.5 million for the infrastructure. That 6.5 million is now outdated. On the next slide, just looking at what's required for industrial TID, and noting that this feasibility study is looking just at the TID financing, not at the village's portion of the financing for the construction of the DPW building. So we're really only looking at making sure that this industrial TID could support its expenses. An industrial TID, as a reminder, would require that a minimum of 50% of the acreage is zoned and suitable for industrial development. It's a 20-year TID. And total site that we've, the total site that we found is, oh, sorry. Oh, good. Site that we found, or the site that was found was 103 acres, of which 26.3 would be separated out for that DPW garage. It would not be in the district. And so we're only looking at the remaining portion. And, you know, the idea, this last bullet point, cash flow shows residual incremental income for flexibility on future uses. Unfortunately, that is also now outdated. The next slide shows a project plan, and I realized that this project plan is actually the old project plan. So you're going to, again, it's two stories here. This is the first story, which showed a project plan for the TID of just over $10 million in projects. That's the infrastructure, land acquisition, as well as just professional services. And we had put in a little bit of money for potential incentive, should that be necessary. And then we had initial development numbers, which are on the next slide, which is page 5. Initial development numbers that showed 3 buildings being developed, one 416,000 square feet, and then 2 further ones of 100,000 square feet each. And that we were able to estimate would get about just over $30 million in development over the first 6 years of build out. And so working through that, the first set of numbers that we had been working from, we on the next page, we project that $30.8 million in development would lead to about just over $514,000 in annual revenue through the life of the district once that build out was complete, which we projected in 2026. So altogether, about $9.5 million in increment being generated over the life of the district with that development. So then on the next slide, we had sized up some borrowings. So we projected the village would borrow in 2022 just over $5.2 million for infrastructure costs related to the TID only portion of this, and then another $4.2 million in land purchase to finance the land purchase, and that was again in 2022. So then the next page, I give you the big paper so that those small numbers aren't horrible to look at. But this is the first round of cash flow that we were looking at, which showed a district that really worked. That development, if you look at the big sheet of paper, all the way to the left, that's revenues coming into the district. Again, that's up to $514,000 a year. And then also some revenues from the borrowings and the sale of land to the developer, and showing that, you know, it would be able to support those costs, that $5.285 million in borrowing. But then the new numbers are on the next slide. So the new numbers that we just kind of plugged in today show an increase in the infrastructure costs of about $4.2 million. And so and we took out that incentive amount just to kind of provide some flexibility here. But that total borrowing for the village financed infrastructure moved from that just over $5 million. Now it's up to $10.1 million. And the other borrowing, the 4.2, remains the same. So the sort of final story here is this next big piece of paper, which shows the cash flow with the updated borrowing amounts, and it's really not working. So if you look all the way to the right side and you see under the annual balances and cumulative balances, all those red negative numbers, that's showing that there's an imbalance between revenues and expenditures to the bad. And, you know, really it's just due to the increased borrowing for infrastructure costs. So I think that's where we're at right now. So, you know, as a feasibility study, we can confidently say that this is not feasible. but that there, there's ways to go back to the drawing board, and if we can increase development or decrease expenditures or work with the developer to sort of mitigate some of the costs here, then that is, that is really the next step. The last slide on here was a timeline for creating a TID, and it was kind of the shortest possible timeline, but obviously I think there's still work to do on that front, and yeah, it was
Learning experience. So the board needs to take no action at this time.
That's correct.
Village administrator.
What I would ask, and this is this presents a obstacle for us, a challenge with the DPW facility and in particular the site. Having said that, we also have to still continue to work on timelines in order to meet the bidding cycles where there are time constraints that we're under. What I would ask the village board is to hold this item over until the next meeting and give staff 2 weeks to, as Mr. Schatz said, we need to look at ways that we can either reduce the costs. We can look at we've already had conversations with Grafe and with the public works staff about potential reconfigurations of the site. Had conversations with developers. We can look at ways of increasing the pace of development or getting more value out, or getting them to put more skin in the game. We may need to go back to the sellers and at some point and say that because of the costs related to preparing the land, we're not able to pay as much as we thought we were. So there's a lot of things that we can look at and a lot of work that we need to do over the next couple of weeks. But I think that we need to keep the process moving and keep moving forward. So I ask the board to hold this over until the meeting on March 21st.
You want a motion on that?
I think I'll defer to the clerk, or I don't know if we need a motion or just we'll bring it back under old business at the next meeting.
It's easier.
All right, Mr. Schatz, thank you. Maybe we'll see you at the next meeting.
Yes, or tan.
Maybe you'll be in Florida, yeah, and at the tan, Mr. Costin will be here.
Technology will probably work then.
Next item on new business is item G, presentation of Holy Hill Reconstruction and award contract for Holy Hill Reconstruction Project. Bring us more information and detail on that new business item. Turn the meeting over to Department of Public Works Director, Mr. Ratachik. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming and for staying with us.
I can't see what everybody's looking at.
There you go.
Is that on? Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right. We're up here for two reasons. One, I thought since we're awarding the project for Holy Hill Road, I'd give you a little update of what the road design is actually going to look like. And I'll just verbally describe it to you. So it's going to be, the Holy Hill Road is being reconstructed from just west of B Street, or the road that goes to the, at one time, mobile gas station. And it'll be constructed easterly to and through Goldendale Road. It's going to be built as a 4-lane divided highway with an 18-foot wide median, except when you get to turning lanes, it'll get narrower at that point. It will have street lights down the median, which will be light heads towards each side, the north and south, east or westbound lanes. Some of the things we allowed for is at the entrance where the mobile station is, B Street. We have allowed for, but not constructing, a full intersection there for any future frontage road that would go northerly. And also across the street from that, the intersections line up the same way as a four-way intersection, four-lane intersection to go south for the proposed frontage road that would head south towards Freistadt Road. So we're not building the north intersection out right away. We are building the south one out pretty much right away to the end of radius. Going to the north, what we're doing and allowing for it is it's not going to be a major construction project when we eventually would put that frontage road to the north. The center line grade is pretty much following the center line grade of the existing road. We're just taking out the little dipsy doodles and a couple of high spots and making it drive smoother. So the elevation is changing 6 inches here, 8 inches there, up or down to make it a smooth transition. The intersections that exist, Gateway Crossing, Gateway Court, the driveway to Wetterhouse Business is a little bit higher. But basically we had to match those roads. They were constructed with this in mind that our grade wouldn't change very much. There's sidewalks on both sides of the road. On the south side is a 10-foot wide asphalt walkway. And on the north side is a 6-foot wide asphalt sidewalk. We switched them, the 10 to the south side because of the proposed, I don't know what we're calling the path that's going to go on the south side of the Capstone development and through the MMSD properties. And so we're planning so that would all loop around and tie together. What are the other highlights out there? A 10-foot on the south side recreational trail. Traffic lights are going to be installed at Goldendale and Holy Hill. The traffic study, when it was done about 2 years ago, called it out to eventually be a traffic light intersection. At that point, the development was still moderate, but with all the development going on in the Holy Hill area, and we know we're hearing interest in the property in the northeast corner of Holy Hill and Goldendale, on the southeast corner. So the traffic is going to just increase steadily. So we're going to make that a traffic light controlled intersection right away at Goldendale and Holy Hill. You may add Goldendale and or Holy Hill and Gateway Crossing is also proposed to eventually be a traffic light controlled intersection. We're not going to install the traffic lights at this time. We are going to plan for the location of all the foundations for the poles and things like that. So that's going to be, it's already planned. They're drawn on the drawing. We're just not going to construct it at this time. Already through it. Any questions on that so far? Sure, there's a lot of questions. No? Good.
So that second intersection, that's right before you get onto the on-off ramps. That's just going to be kind of roughed in and for future frontage road.
The one by the gas station there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we're going to tie a two-lane road like their driveway is up into their existing road, but we have it designed to be a full intersection with a median there and 2 lanes each direction. The southerly one, we're going to build that out right away because there's probably more opportunity that's going to happen before the northerly one.
Okay.
All the storm water drainage is curb and gutter road. I'll mention this Capstone development worked with us very closely, and their pond was sized a little bit larger for us. All of our storm water goes into the Capstone stormwater pond. We did a SWIP for that also approved by MMSD. Their SWIP was approved by MMSD and DNR. And so all our stormwater will drain into their pond, which saved us a tremendous amount of really money, because we probably would have to have purchased some land to have put a stormwater pond to do that. So that development has helped us immensely. That way there was no more room to put a pond without buying some of the other really desirable land along Holy Hill Road. So with that said, we can answer questions, so I'll continue on. We did put it out to bid. We opened bids on March 2nd. We got 5 bidders. I have a handout here if anybody wants to see the bid tab. I'll just read it to you. Michael's, you see here is Michael's Construction. They're called Michael's Road and Stone Inc. now. They were the low bidder at $4,149,898 and change. Vinton Construction was second at $4,180,814 and change. Butine Peterson Construction, $4,181,091. Musson Brothers, $4,647,067. And Super Western was high in the fifth at $4,888,699 and change. Very close bidding, which makes you feel really good as a engineer who puts it out. That means they're all looking at the same set of plans and looking at the job the same way. So when you see a bid like that, there shouldn't be many problems through the construction because everybody saw it the same way. We did take it to the Public Works Committee just before the board meeting, and it was approved at the board meeting. I'm looking for approval for awarding the job to Michael's Construction for the $4,149,898.85. I'd also like approval for a 5% contingency of $207,450 for a total of $4,357 to $4,357,348.85. The funds for this will come out of TID 8, and they'll be through TID 8.
Motion to approve the contract to Michael's Road and Stone Inc. as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Rick Miller.
It's all coming out of TID 8, right?
Yes.
See, I had a few hours now to think about this. TID 7 doesn't have to share it all? They're right across the road, right?
Well, if TID 7 could have shared in the project, when TID 7 was formed originally, it was not extended all the way up to Holy Hill Road. It was originally down by J.W. Speaker. When we formed TID 8, we needed to do Holy Hill Road. We put the entire cost in TID 8. It would be possible to share those costs. I don't know if we'd have to adjust the TID budgets to do that. There's nothing in the TID 7.
Well, TID 8 is strong enough to carry it.
Yeah, we're still projecting out that TID 8 is going to close, 8 or 10 years early. So,
okay. If I could add one thing really quick, just a reminder, this is also the project that we got the $1 million grant through the LRIP program from the state of Wisconsin. So our true cost will be $1 million less. It'll be $3,149,898.
Further discussion. Trustee Hudson.
Yeah, just a question out on my own ignorance, to be very honest with you. Why wouldn't we put roundabouts in where we've got signals on a project like this, Larry?
They looked at roundabouts for Holy Hill and the Holy Hill Goldendale intersection, and it didn't work out. Part of it was just due to land constraints. Part of it was due to future traffic flows. Each intersection is based, the roundabouts are only good for a certain, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I know there's a certain amount of traffic flow through them is what they can handle. That's why they looked at Nequan and Country Air Drive was originally thought to be a roundabout. And then because it hit a certain traffic volume, it took them too many years to build it. And by the time they built it and the traffic went up and traffic volume triggered it to be a traffic light controlled intersection.
Thank you.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Your mic's not on, Larry. And secondly, when will you start this and when will it be completed?
We rushed it through approval like this tonight with both committee and board. Contracts will be going out to the contractor on Wednesday, and he has 10 days to get them back to us. So we pushed this to hopefully get in the early construction season. I would think as soon as frost is out of the ground, you'll start seeing them. As long as We Energies gets out of the way, you'll start seeing the rough grading start and the pipe going in the ground. Their completion time would be, I'm shooting for, say, November 1st. Should be done.
Trustee Ball.
Steve, you had indicated that this is supposed to close 8 to 10 years sooner. Is that inclusive of the $1 million we're getting?
Yes.
Okay.
Further discussion. No further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Oh, good. Okay. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Larry. Next item under new business is item H, Village of Richfield Potential Water Sewer Agreement. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. And new business item I, vacation separation payout. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved.
Motion to go into closed session. Do you want to have them separate for each one? For closed session?
Dave,
Brian's shaking his head, yes.
and then who do you want to include in H and who do you want to include in I?
In H, it should be community development staff, public works staff, the village attorney, and myself. And actually the support services manager for item I, the support services manager, the village attorney, and myself.
Okay. Which one do you think will take?
Just a heads up, this is Jolene. I'm on WebEx, been listening in. If I could be included as well?
No.
Yep, I appeared just for this one.
Yeah, you can be included. We can call you on the phone, or how about if we just call you on the phone? Does that work for you?
Whatever you prefer, President
Okay.
Walter.
That's what we'll do. All right. Item H then.
Have a motion. Who was the seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion made and seconded for item H. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller? Trustee Baum? Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper?
Aye.
President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Business item I. Motion.
I move we go into closed session for item I.
With people as
People as support, the attorney and the village administrator only.
Second that.
motion made and seconded. Discussion. No discussion. Roll call vote.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Baum? Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Rick Miller? Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper?
Aye.
President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, before we go into closed session, the next regular village board meeting will be on Monday, March 21st at 7 p.m. here in the Village Hall Boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. We will adjourn and go into closed session, so please turn off your microphones and we'll give a couple minutes for everybody to clear out that doesn't need to be here and for the audiovisual to close down. Thank you. Have a good night and thank you for watching.